Hi students, this is Dr. Kubin. I wanted to just give you a little bit of some tips on how to gather APA referencing information from websites. Students often tend to have some difficulties finding the information that they need in order to create their references from online sources. So I wanted to just kind of go through and show you how to do that. First of all, I'll just tell you the references from an online source are going to follow the same format that they will for journals or books or whatever. So you're going to use that same author, date, title, and publishing information. So the publishing information and for an online source is going to be the URL. So let me just show you first a couple of, I'm going to show you a couple of examples from government websites and non-government websites because they're a little bit different. Because the government websites kind of have some author differences in that the authors are a little bit there's umbrellas that they kind of go by when you're looking at government websites. So I have pulled up right here um, the Healthy People website, and in this course, um, you're going to use this site quite a bit. This is Healthy People 2030, and you may use Healthy People 2030 and you may use Healthy People 2020, but we're trying to transition over to Healthy People 2030. So this site is the Healthy People 2030. And so you can see right here at the top, this is the author here. The United States Department of Health and Human Services is the big umbrella of healthy people, but the Office of Disease Prevention and Health Promotion is the author of Healthy People 2030. And so that's who you would use as your author. And when you're in doubt, most of your websites, particularly your government websites, they have this little, they'll have if you go scroll down your page, they'll have something where it says, see right here, it says copyright policy. It requires you to do a little bit of kind of investigation to figure out what you're supposed to do. But if you click on this, it tells you right here, this is all freely used and you can use it, but it does tell you on here that you can use anything from this website, but acknowledge ODPHP as the source. So that tells you that the author of this is in fact ODPHP. Now, when you are citing this in any works that you do, you would want to, the first time you use this, you would want to write out Office of Disease Prevention and Health Promotion, and then you would abbreviate it ODPHP, and then every time thereafter you can use the abbreviation. So that will help with that big long, not having to use the full name every time. So the author we have is ODPHP. And then you want to look for your date. So again, looking for the date, we want to look up here, and of course you don't see any dates here. Scroll down to the bottom, and most of the time on websites, the date you're going to use is usually found at the bottom. So we want to come down here. Now, as you can see, we don't see a date anywhere on this page. So that would lead us to believe that this is a no date. But if we go back to our copyright policy again, you're going to see a date right here, and it tells you last updated. One of the things that you have to be really careful about with websites is that you're looking for the publishing date. A lot of times with websites, you will see either a copyright date, you will see an updated date, or you will see a reviewed date. One of the things that you have to be really careful about is that you're using either the updated date or an actual publishing date. If you see a copyright date, APA format tells us, or APA rules tell us not to use a copyright date because that does not necessarily imply the date that it was published. And a reviewed date simply means that the information was reviewed, but it doesn't necessarily mean that anything was actually published or changed. So in this case, the information was actually updated, so we can use 2021 as our date. So that's what we want to use here. And then our title. So up here at the top, we've got browse objectives for this particular page. And then the last thing would be our publishing information. So that's going to be your URL, which is this right here. So that would be what we would use for this particular site. Let me show you another example. I'm going to go to the CDC website here. And this is the same type of information. So here we have our author, which is CDC, or Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. We want to scroll and look for our date, which down here, again, we're going to go to the bottom of our page. So here, as this is an example where you can see where it says last reviewed. We don't want to use the last reviewed date because that doesn't mean that anything was actually changed. So we don't see any other dates on this page. So this is going to be one of those no date dates. And so in our parentheses for our date, we would put N period D period for no date. And then for the title, I want to point this out. So up here, we're at the top of the page, you see where it says measles / rubeola. I want to point out, so if I went to this page here, you can see that measles rubeola right there. So I want to point out that if I go here, it also says measles rubeola. If I go here, it says measles rubeola. So that is what they call a banner. That is not the title of your website. So this right here is the title. So if I were using this particular website, this would be the title I would use, would be vaccines for measles. And then again, up here, this is my URL. And why I'm pointing this out is because CDC, for example, you can see how this starts out with cdc.gov. If I were to put in my reference page, cdc.gov, that's going to take me to the main page of cdc.gov, which is not going to pull up the information on the vaccines for measles. So you have to put the specific URL to get me to this page so that I know, or the reader knows, where you got your specific information. So you want to make sure that you put the exact URL that you're putting in. Okay, finally, not finally, but here's a page that takes you to, this is a non-governmental website. They're sometimes a little bit more clear, particularly when it comes to who the author is. So you can see that this is the American Association for Nurse Practitioners. So that's pretty clear. There's not several different layers of who the author might be. This is your title. And again, we have no date. Here you can see they have a copyright, but again, like I said, APA tells us not to use copyright dates because that doesn't really tell us when it was actually published. I do want to point out here in the title, so regardless of what the title looks like here on this page, remember that APA tells us that our reference title only capitalizes the first word. So what's would be capitalized, but then A and nurse and practitioner, those would all be lowercase words. And then again, here's our URL. The last thing that I wanted to show you is this site right here. This one, you would presume that your author would be U.S. News and World Report, but you can see right here that it tells you this article is by Cecilia Smith Schoenwalder. And so in this particular case, you actually have an individual author on this page. So here your author would be Smith Schoenwalder, comma C, and then your date would be 2022, comma, April 21st. And the reason why you're going to put the specific day here is because this is a newspaper source. So it changes frequently. And then you're going to have your title, and then you would put your URL for your publishing information. So I hope that this helps you kind of clarify some information about online web sources. And again, if you have questions, because sometimes there will always be things that are not going to be cut and dried, clear information. So anytime you have questions, feel free to send me an email and ask them when you're struggling. And I'm looking forward to a great class. Thanks.